What's up, everybody? So in this next podcast, me and James are going to talk about all the new stuff that's been happening in the UFC, Conor McGregor thing, Tyson Fury thing. So don't miss it.
1978とある田舎町で生まれて移り住んだ新宿で育ちこの町で起きたこれまでの俺たちのここまでの生い立ちはほんのまた序の口試されたいちいち正してきた過ち騙し合いやからしないはスニッチの始まり放課後の登山所児童館にホームアローンそんな時間はほったらかして向かったとある場所
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Yamato Damashi podcast. Today, we're going to run through a couple of different MMA topics. It's been a while since we kind of talked about the UFC and kind of the large MMA landscape. There was a big UFC on the weekend, so we thought we'd get into that. Obviously, it's big news stories. Ngannou, McGregor, all the big names, lots of different stuff going on. So let's get into it. Let's have a discussion. But before we do, Enson, how's things? How's it going?
Everything's good. Getting my workouts in. Today I did a double workout. So jumped into a cold plunge at 8.5 degrees or 8.8 degrees Celsius. I think that's under 40 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, it's cold.
Yeah, it was good. I stayed in it for 5 minutes and feel real good right now. I actually just got out of it like a couple hours ago.
Nice.
And going to head to Niigata tomorrow to help them call kois and a possibility of bringing some home.
Always. There's always a few that can't make it back with you. So
a few hundred.
So let's talk about UFC 290. I thought it was a pretty awesome show. I still haven't even seen the Robbie Lawler stuff, but apparently that was a pretty epic send-off. But I did see the whole of the main card, despite being pretty hungover from a pretty eventful trip in Spain. But what did you make of the card overall?
Well, it was awesome, man. I thought all the fights are good. Of course, yeah, I did see the Lawler fight. He knocked the guy out. And I thought it was like a perfect send-off for a last fight of an epic career.
I didn't realize that they said that he was the last person that ever fought in Pride left on the roster.
Oh, really? Damn.
Last ever Pride / Strike Force fighter. So it's kind of like the end of an era. I was like, whoa.
Oh, wow. Oh, I didn't realize that either.
Yeah. But that makes you feel old.
Yeah, no shit, man.
But yeah, I want to talk about some of the main card fights. I want to start with the main event. We'll start with Volkanovski. I actually picked Yair to win. I thought Yair had those crazy kicks that he might be able to land something. I felt like he did a good job.
Yeah. There were so many kicks that got so close.
Yeah.
He's such a dangerous fighter. And Volkanovski's just got his whole ground, his whole game is just so solid.
Like how I've always think it's like with a strategy like that where someone really like relies on their kicks, it's always quite hard to prepare for, right? Because he's so unorthodox as well with what he's throwing and striking is just so out there. But I felt Volk just had the best game plan, just sort of laid into him and super impressed. But what I wanted to know is who do you think Volk should fight next?
Wow. Jeez. I personally want to see him rematch Makhachev.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I definitely want to see that. I mean, I thought he won.
Oh, you did?
Ooh. Yes, especially the way the third round ended. He broke Islam. He knocked him down, was in the guard, and was pounding the shit out of him. And you could see it. You could see it in Islam's face. He was 100% defeated. I also believe that in fights, because stamina and durability and damage is big points of judging a fight, I also think that the third round should be scored a little more because that shows the durability and the damage that the fighter took and their endurance. So I really think that the third round should have a little bit of a higher scoring system. And if that was the case, I mean, I think if he had another minute, he would have ended the fight.
Yeah, it was pretty close right at the end. It was a tense moment. I'm really interested to see what the announcement is about Makhachev, because they're saying that Charles Oliveira, who I thought was going to be next in line, is not going to be ready in time. And they're obviously, they've got Justin Gaethje fighting Dustin Poirier at the next pay-per-view. So it's kind of like, who's Makhachev's next opponent?
Yeah, maybe
it's
Volkanovski.
maybe it's Chandler. Maybe it's Chandler.
Oh, maybe, yeah. I know. There's also rumors on that. I think you got that written down. Talk about the McGregor Chandler thing.
Yeah, it's on the list.
I'm hearing this little side. Todd Atkins always comes up with some heavy scoop.
Yeah.
Like he was the first one who brought up that PFL's buying off Bellator, and Chael Sonnen like laughed at it and everything, but turned out true. He actually also said that McGregor's not fighting Chandler. So Todd Atkins get his stuff somewhere that's pretty accurate. So I couldn't see a legitimate source of MMA news.
Yeah, maybe it's Conor fighting Makhachev. Can you imagine?
Oh God. I don't know. The star value of Conor gives him so much privileges over everyone else, special privileges. I wouldn't be surprised at what happens next with Conor.
It's a bit of a crazy one, right? Like I'm almost waiting, and I love the guy, but I'm almost waiting for that headline of Conor McGregor checks into rehab, because I swear to God, some of these headlines and some of the stuff you see what he's up to, it literally looks like this, that he is just waiting to go on a downward spiral.
Yeah, and this it's like that allegations about that girl he brought into the bathroom.
Yeah.
It's like everyone's going off on, well, he didn't rape her, she went on her own, and they were together after. But it's like, for me, it's like more like, but he's fucking got a girlfriend with a kid.
Yeah.
Taking her from the bathroom, whether you raped her or not, is just totally wrong right there. Already that's out. That should never happen. And it just shows that how much people are accepting that he's really out of line. I mean, he's over the edge and people are accepting it. It's almost like saying someone goes to a casino and loses $1 million and you say, well, at least he didn't lose 3 million. It's like they're making exceptions for Conor. I mean, you don't bring a girl into the men's bathroom, especially when you have a wife with a child on the way, or a kid and a child on the way. You don't bring a girl into the bathroom. That already should be a strike against them right there. Not oh, well, he did it, she went on her own. It's like they're making it like they're making reasons why it's okay that he brought a girl into the bathroom. He didn't rape her, Jeez.
And not even discreet, right? Like, so many cameras on him. It's like, dude.
Yeah, you just wonder. Yeah, you wonder what their relationship's like. You wonder why she lets him do that. You wonder what type of relationship they have. There's so much questions that come up when you see something like that.
Yeah, that's why I almost think is he like heading for a downward spiral? Because I almost think like, even if he was that type of character in the past, he might have been a bit more careful with what he was doing. Whereas like now he seems to be just making wild mistakes. And I mean, we've seen he says a lot of crazy shit on Twitter, right? But I think recently it kind of keeps snowballing and getting a bit more like to the point where, I don't know, I would not be surprised if you see Conor McGregor checking into a rehab at some point, because I feel like he needs some sort of help, or he needs to take himself out of some of these situations.
Yeah, I think also it's a mindset where he thinks he's above the law and above everything. It's kind of scary.
Yeah. I guess with that amount of money, it's easy to fall into that sort of trap, though, right? I wanted to get your opinion on the smack talk that we saw after the Derek Duprice and Whitaker fight, because obviously Duprice DDP has this big win against Whitaker. Adesanya comes in the cage, and then shit got pretty real and pretty personal. So I wanted to know what you thought about that smack talk.
Well, one, I thought that I mean, it's a good build-up. I think it's a good promotion. Definitely, there's those things about taking the spotlight away from Dupree after he just won. But I think for the overall promotion, I think it's a pretty cool thing to do. About I just don't know what I feel about black people being okay to use the N-word, and he couldn't return him with the N-word because he's not black. Because then it become racial. But because Adesanya's black, he was okay. He could say that and it doesn't become racial. I mean, I just think that word should be taken out of the vocabulary altogether, no matter if you're black, white, or yellow. So I don't know.
I see where you're coming from. It's a sticky one, right? I think the thing is, I feel like Derek made it really, really personal when he starts to, when he said what he said about Adesanya, not really being an African champion. I feel like that's a real shot at the guy's heritage, right? Like that's something that he should never really said in the first place. So I feel like when Izzy got in there, he was ready for it, right? He's taken this fight personally, and that's the type of fighter he is, right? He's gonna sort of almost feed that into his training, and then you see that he, to me, that didn't feel like a publicity stunt or doing it for the cameras. It felt like he was doing it for himself. It actually felt,
I think so too. I think so too.
Authentic, right? He doesn't care what people think about whether you say the M word or not. He's kind of that's who he is. That's how he felt in that moment. And to be honest, with Adesanya, you probably think we've probably sound like we're a bit on the same page. I do think that he's almost like a bit of a throwback to some of the fighters where back in the day you were really invested in their story in your era, right? In guys in your era, guys, a couple of years after as well, where actually they had these really big feuds, or the fights felt a lot bigger because it wasn't just fighter A versus fighter B. There's a bit more to it. Like we see with the Pereira fight, he'd been beat twice in kickboxing. This guy comes in, he then loses to him, and then he has to come back and get that victory, and it's a knockout. And I do like the fact that for me, he feels like one of those stars at your guys' level where, if you slotted him in 2005 or 2008 or where, I feel like he would be as big of a star as he is now. Whereas you don't often get that with a lot of the other guys fighting.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But yeah, no, I'm super excited to see that fight. I think the biggest thing for me, which was a surprise, was how good DDP looked. That win over, it's Robert Whittaker, right? He's been one or number two for how many years? So to actually see someone dismantle him the way they did in such quick fashion was pretty impressive.
Yeah, it shows how good that guy is. And but I don't know, man. Just Izzy is so good.
Yeah. I can't. The thing that bothers me is about this fight is why is it not being taking place in Africa? This is the perfect fight for imagine the atmosphere, right? I mean, I know there's the history of obviously white South Africans and that sort of stuff, but it's kind of
where's that fight going to be?
They're talking. The thing is, on the broadcast, they kept saying the Sydney card's coming up in September or October, whenever it is, and they were talking about it to get it onto the Sydney card. Is it too quick? And it's forget Australia. Let's do it in Africa. That fight would be insane.
It would. Yeah, two African fighters, or so-called representation of Africa for Izzy at least.
Apparently, so I would love to see that fight in Africa. I think that would have been the greatest fight. I do feel like sometimes the UFC recently has been missing the boat with some of these. Before they felt like they were going to take over the world, go to all these different places. Whereas now, it seems like if it's not UK, US, or the Apex, it's kind of they they're not as adventurous and not as widespread as they have been.
Well, have you noticed that the African thing has actually toned down a lot since Francis has left?
Yeah, maybe PFL will go there first.
I think that was one of the big reasons why they were going to, wanting to have an event in Africa, build a institute, UFC PI in Africa. I think with I think the three of them, Usman, Adesanya, and Francis. I think Francis was the main one, and now Francis is gone. That takes a third to half of the reason why you want to have a event in Africa, and then Usman loses, and only Izzy's left. And it's now all of a sudden the talk about going to Africa is kind of subsided. He won there.
Yeah, and it's probably the same with Mexico, right? We just saw Yair lose, we saw Moreno lose, and then so now there's just Grazo left. I think that's the only Mexican champ.
Yeah, and Grazo and Savenko having a second chance. That's a scary one, man. We might actually see all the Mexican champions disappear, man.
If that happens, we may never see UFC Mexico. We may never see UFC Africa. But I hope that's not the case, and they still do it because they can still do the champions, the ex-champions challenging for other fights. So I really want to see that. I did hear Dana was saying that he was looking at Spain as an option for UFC. So that'd be pretty cool. Like, they've only got one prominent Spanish fighter, I think, in Ilia Taipura, but other than that, it's pretty slim pickings. But hey, go to Spain. Spain's a fun place. So.
Yeah.
Lots of good stuff on the card. Which fight did you prefer between the Brandon Moreno fight and the Dan Hooker Jalen Turner fight?
I'm all about toughness and just what Dan Hooker went through. I loved how Moreno came back and started actually, taking control of the fight after he gets knocked down. But man, after seeing what happened to Dan Hooker about the broken, I guess he had a broken hand and something broken, something in his cheekbone or something was broken.
Yeah, something. I don't know what the
that guy's pretty much taking. I mean, he's just taking like a day in the office. It's like that's gangster, man. I got so much respect for the guy now, and to know what he had while he fought, it's pretty impressive.
Did you say it was the end of round 1 or early round 2 or something?
Yeah. It was actually when he broke his hand. It was early in round 1, I think. So that guy fought all, and when they asked him about it, he was, I don't know, I think it might be broken. I gotta check.
He just doesn't give a shit, right? So it's like,
yeah. I mean, other than that, I think the Moreno fight was actually more dramatic, where he got knocked out and he starts coming back.
Yeah.
But I think with the outcome of him losing, it took away from that, and then the results of his Dan Hooker's medical just makes me sway to that fight more than the Moreno fight.
Yeah, I can see that. And credit to Pantoja, the new champion, right? He looked good, man. Like that, the 125 division right now is really fun. Like, since we had Demetrius, right, who was so dominant for so many years, and then since he's kind of left, it's been super exciting with like who takes a bit of hot potato with the title, right? We've had what's his name?
You know what I really liked about this event is you have the main event and the co-main event. You got Volkanovski, you got Rodriguez, and then you got Moreno.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, can't pronounce his name, but the guy he fought,
Pantoja.
They were all class acts. They were all not shit talkers. They were giving enough respect to each other. I mean, it's kind of a breath of fresh air to see when the movement for a while, a couple of years ago, was about, after Conor McGregor sets an example, it came down to where, shit talking was the way to go. And then you got Kobe Covington coming out. You got, a lot of these guys, turning into heels. And for me, I feel, it's a martial art and it just should have honor in it. And I was kind of bummed the way the movement was going. But now this last one you see, it's like freaking all class acts, all guys that with honor. And I was super stoked to see that. Yeah,
definitely. Lots of handshakes, lots of respect between it. It's the level, right? The level's just so high at the moment. It's just
great,
especially at 145. But yeah. So lots of good fights on that card. I really enjoyed watching it. There's been a ton of different news items as well. I wanted to get into a few of them while we've got time. The big one, I think it was yesterday that when they announced it, Francis Ngannou fighting Tyson Fury. I wanted to get your thoughts on, first of all, the matchup, what you think it looks like, and then second of all, I want to get your opinion on his business decision on doing this.
Well, as far as the business decision, I thought he fucked up until this. So, I mean, I think DC also had to apologize. He was saying that Francis made the wrong decision, and because this deal is seems like an amazing deal for Francis. It's like, well, he didn't fuck up. If you asked me this 2 days ago, I would have said, yeah, he fucked it all up. He should have stayed in the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
And now I can't really say that. I can't really say the opposite either. But I can say for now, it wasn't a total fuck up. If it's financial he was looking for, then I think he did the right thing. If it's legacy, then maybe he didn't do the right thing. It depends on what the person wants to do. Because for his legacy, he needs to beat John Jones.
Depends on the outcome as well, right?
For the money, but he's doing his right, So, and as far as the results of the fight, I know his team, Eric. I know Eric them at the Extreme Couture. They're awesome coaches, but I just can't see, Francis beating a boxer at his own game.
Can you see him making the distance?
Well, the thing is, Francis's dream before coming to MMA was boxing. I know he boxed with some high-ranked boxers and really held his own. So he's not totally like someone like Tyron Woodley coming in from the UFC to fight boxing. I think he's a lot more adverse in boxing.
Mm-hmm.
And if he was fighting like a ranked heavyweight, that would be really interesting. But he's fighting the heavyweight champ, So that alone, it just makes me worry that Tyson Fury knows what he's doing. He can hit hard. He's a big boy, got a lot of reach, and I'm thinking he's going to come in with a game plan that's just going to take Francis apart. I hope not, but I'd love to see Francis catch him with a big punch. But for me, boxing, because you're only using your hands, is such a fine art that unless you're been in the art for years, you're not going to come into their game and beat one of their heavyweight champs.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it. And it feels super unlikely that there'll be any other outcome other than Fury winning. But that being said, like, there's that element of excitement, right? And like, my God, MMA needs this win because the boxing guys have done MMA dirty for the last couple of years. So,
let's put it this way. We all know Francis hits the shit out of people.
Yeah.
His punch weighs a ton. And we also know that Tyson Fury's been knocked out before, knocked out cold.
Yeah, he can be dropped. We saw Wilder drop him. So.
Oh, definitely can be dropped. And
yeah.
So, it's one of those things that if he connects, that's going to be super exciting. I mean, I'm definitely going to be all for Francis winning, and definitely going to watch it whatever it costs, wherever it is. I'm going to download wherever you're going to watch it, and I'm watching it.
Yeah, same. I mean, I don't know what the time will be because it's in Saudi, so I don't know whether they'll like cater for the US time or whether they'll cater.
If it's 3 a.m, I'll get up at 3 a.m. to watch it.
Well, they're like 2 hours ahead of the UK, so I don't know. But then sometimes
probably won't be too crazy.
Hopefully not for once. You guys get all the big fights.
Yeah.
The best thing about the UK is I can watch RIZIN at like a kind of normal morning time, which is good. So
that's nice. That's nice.
It's RIZIN usually starts at like 6 a.m. So I can like wake up.
That's kind of like what's happening for me when they fight in Vegas.
Yeah. So it's like a morning sort of. I don't mind. I like watching fights in the morning actually. It's like
it's not bad at all. It's a nice way to start the day.
It is, yeah. It's always good. One of the other topics I want to get into, and this was a hot topic a good couple of weeks ago, you kind of alluded to before about Todd Atkins breaking the news about Bellator and about how Bellator was up for sale. I wanted to get your opinion on it, right? Because at one point there was talks of like a number of different suitors and who would be after buying Bellator. What do you want to see happen to Bellator?
I don't know. I don't understand how it'll be good for Bellator, for PFL to buy out Bellator when PFL is a competing promotion with Bellator. It's almost like UFC buying off Pride and then, thinking of they're going to run a Pride when they're trying to compete with UFC. So I don't know why that happened. I don't know what the plan is. I don't know anything about the business aspect of it. But for me, it kind of just threw up a lot of confusion for me instead of excitement. More like, wow, what are they going to do? I mean, it's like a promotion buying another promotion, and they're going to promote both promotions. I don't know.
I don't think they will. I mean, you look at history, and when a promotion gets bought, it's done right. Like maybe they remember when the UFC bought the WEC, they did have some shows, but then eventually it folded into the UFC. So,
of course they want to merge to one. I don't see why they want to run two promotions when they could just make it one. So I don't know. I just don't see, something. I love the Scott Coker. I love what Bellator was doing. And I think it's always good to have a competitor on the side of the UFC. And I think Bellator was the closest thing to a competitor for the UFC.
Yeah.
And, maybe, I don't know, maybe now the PFL will swallow up Bellator and become a threat to the UFC too. So you never know. Maybe, maybe the PFL will like absorb Bellator and become bigger, so we'll see. I can't get myself to get too excited about that buyout over. Don't understand it really completely.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know. It doesn't feel like the right fit for me for Bellator because I feel like PFL's got a different rule set, right? No elbows. I don't like that. That's something that I'm not a fan of. And I really so Scott Coker I think is generally a good booker, and I think in the past he definitely created some magic with Strikeforce, right? And even a lot of the stuff he's done recently with the likes of AJ McKee and Pitbull and those guys has been really fun. And the RIZIN stuff, the crossover, that's been really great. Sometimes the matchmaking, I'm a bit like, why did you put these guys together? Because they're historically quite dull fighters and they fight each other. And it's like, I don't want to name names, but I always hated Fedor's last fight. It was an amazing send-off. It looked great. But Fedor versus Bader, Ryan Bader's the last ever opponent for Fedor. Not sure about that.
Yeah.
Although I think that might have been Fedor's choice. But even still, it's kind of, you could have done something a bit more fun. But I'm going off on a tangent. I feel like Scott is just kind of coming into his own a little bit more with Bellator now. So I don't think it's a him thing. I think it's maybe more of a parent company, Viacom, let's sell him off. And who wants to buy?
We'll have to wait and give it time to run its course before we can really see what's going to happen with it.
Yeah. I don't know. It's with the RIZIN collaboration coming up, it doesn't feel like they're getting sold, right? It feels like
I know. I'm worried that that buyover might affect that collab. Yeah. I really enjoyed the Bellator fighters coming to Japan, and again the Super Rising in July. They're gonna have the same thing. Have some, I think Pitbull and
Patricia.
It's gonna fight AJ McKee. Yeah. So, and I heard rumor now that the September card is also going to be a Super Rising card.
Ooh, interesting.
So they're going to be bringing a lot of foreigners in on that one too. So that I'm glad so far the buyover is not complete. I think it hasn't been affected yet, so hopefully it won't. And Rising and Bellator will continue to collab.
Maybe Saki Kobara can get out the checkbook and buy Bellator.
maybe I don't know. I think he spends all his money on Floyd.
Yeah, I don't think he'd want the international expansion, right? I don't feel like that's high on the list for them right now.
Yeah,
it's more about domestic, right?
Yeah, definitely not.
No. But like you say, it's really good seeing the Bellator fighters come over and fight in Japan. So
yeah, for real, yeah.
I didn't really have any more topics unless you got anyone.
No, yeah, okay. I just wanted to finish off and just drop that bomb.
Okay.
I'm going to drop a bomb now. Okay. It's not 100%, but what I hear, and it's a very reliable source, there's talks of a David and Goliath fight. It's definitely a talk. It's definitely something that's in movement. So keeping our fingers crossed, and I think it'll be interesting. I think it'll be a crazy event. So just dropping that bomb and right now, and maybe we can tell you in 5 months, like we told you so.
It will be a throwback to pride, to say the least, right?
Yeah. It's actually something right down the lines of what Sakakibara likes to do. So I heard he heard about it today. He's super excited, and it's just need the final touches. So keeping my fingers crossed, that'll be a great fight to work for. I've got 5 months. So drop that bomb. The mention of this fight is probably the first ever on the Yamato Damashi podcast.
Exclusive, right there.
Exclusive. We beat Todd Atkins.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Todd.
crazy. We could beat Todd Atkins.
Yeah, first. All right. Well, I don't think we can wrap it up on any bigger news than that, right? So hopefully the deal gets done.
Shoot.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching this Express edition. We will be back again soon.
All right, everybody. Drop the bombshell. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share. We're done.